Hi there, and welcome on the journey to transform culture. I'm Steve, and I'll be your guide. Well, folks, I hope you're having a fantastic day and an even better week. Folks, in this video, we're going to talk a little bit about are we seeing the signs correctly? Right? Very open and broad category today. And because we often talk about organizational culture, really, we're talking about the culture at large, right? All of us as a humanity. And then as you go, as you sift it down through the different size of groups from the world and countries and all the way down until we get to communities and essentially families and then ourselves as individuals, that all these dots are connected, right? So when we're talking about one, we're really talking about all of it. Isn't it true something that's true for you and your neighbor is true for the entire world to some level, right? Isn't there a shred of evidence that emanates throughout the entire, our human experience? Sure, absolutely. And so that's why we're diving in today to talk a little bit about, are we seeing the signs correctly? Are we kind of getting the message? The world and history goes through, it's the sine wave, right? You have rising and falling of different times and in different ways. It could be culturally, it could be, the economics, it could be the political system, it could be, strife and conflict in the world. Doesn't matter really what we're talking about. Everything seems to be riding its own wave. And sometimes those waves are in sync and sometimes they're not. But in a broader spectrum, if you were to pan back, you also have to understand that with every challenge, or we go through these rise of, say, conflict and other difficulties, that those are also opportunities, I should say like this, right? Those are opportunities, right? Because what comes after a downturn, an upswing, and if history has taught us anything, is that through every downturn, eventually there's an upswing. But going into the downturns or being in the downturn, we don't just ride it out, right? We don't just sit back and wait and, well, I hope it gets better, right? No, we actually have to participate, right, folks? We have to jump in and be a part of the rebirth, right? We have to be a part of the experience, just being connected to your neighbors and the groups that you're connected with, your church, your community, and all that and your approach too, right? All of those things together can what? Turn the tide, can turn things for the better, right? But I guess it's actually helpful to ask ourselves, are we actually doing things for the better? Or are we looking for an opportunity to divide? Because even in our fears of what can happen in the world or communities at any level, right? It could be in your work environment. Your fears can what? Create an environment, even in your own heart, that divides you from those who you've been, say, working with or operating around or whatever, right? Interacting with. And so you can become divided there. And if you're divided at any level, that propagates out like a wave, okay? And that affects all of culture. If you go back in time far enough, you'll find those who, whether it be revelations or whether it be other insights as to, people who could see trends and so forth, to see what was coming with, economics and growth and all the things, that was their snapshot in time based on where they were. But are we reading these signs correctly, right? Because if I wanted to warn you not to go into the dark woods after, when it's late at night because it's dangerous, what would I tell you? I would do everything to what? To make you realize how dangerous it was. To what? Change your behavior. To what? Get you not to go into the dark wood, okay? Because you may survive the dark wood, right? You and others may survive it. Maybe not everyone will, right? But if I'm telling you how dark the wood is it code? Okay, folks? Are we waking up? Is it code? Don't go into the dark wood late at night, all right? Stay on the lighted path. Follow this example, okay? And don't go here, go here. Because if you don't adhere to the path where it's safe and thriving for everyone, then you will end up in the dark woods, okay? I'm not poo-pooing the dark woods, right? There's some beautiful things about wood, being in wooded lands, but just using it as an example, right? Contrast. But hopefully you understand that some of these folks were foreseeing our nature as human beings and saying, look, folks, you're going to hit a divide in the road, and there are going to be those who, if you're not careful, will take you into the what? The dark woods late at night where it's dangerous, and it's not going to end well for many, right? They're telling you that to scare you on purpose. They're telling you that to what? Help you so you don't go into the dark wood late at night. Even those who might lead you into the dark wood. If you wanted to try to convince them, hey, the dark woods aren't necessarily good, right? The outcome's not going to be good. If all of us we'll use a village, if all of us in the village are going into the dark wood, it might decimate our village. Then how are we going to grow our crops and do all the things we need to do to grow and thrive, right? So you see that if somebody warns, well, don't go into the dark wood, it isn't an invitation to be stupid, okay? It is an invitation to do dumb things. It isn't an invitation to divide and to bring strife and to bring animos between people. It is a warning not to go that path, not saying to go that path, okay? You have to be able to read the tea leaves, folks, okay? You got to be able to read the situation. You pull out a map, flip it upside down. That oftentimes is our culture, right? We're reading the map upside down and inside out based on what? We're basing it off of what? That this is the dark woods or the path we have to go down. No, that's the coded warning. Again, wake up, folks, wake up. And this is why folks have to, and this is the other part of this, keep it on a path of what? Keep things on a path, even if somebody's going, if we're being led toward the dark wood, right? And we know, hey, this isn't great, right? This is probably not a good thing. We don't better anything by then battling with the people in our village about the dark woods or you're bad, and no, you think this and you think that, and you believe up is down and down is up. No, it's the dark wood, right? And so you fragment yourselves so that you what? Still propagate toward the dark wood, okay? Now, there are going to be those that are going to stand back and go, are you kidding me? Really? You're going toward the dark wood. Nobody actually told you that you had to go in there. You're choosing to do it because somebody said, hey, the dark wood. And as a warning, folks, as a revealing, okay? The revealing was the sign in the road to say, change behavior, okay? Individually, all the way up through the entire culture. And if you do that, good things will come. Now, but if you're someone who wants to use that to your advantage, you're not going to let the message of staying on the lighted path be the reigning conversation of the day. No, you're going to wrap your entire everything around the dark wood. Well, for us to life means we got to go through that dark wood. No, just like I told my kid when, my son, when he was young, when he was an older boy, young man, I said, you don't have to make all the mistakes that everyone else made to learn from the same mistakes that everybody else made, okay? You can learn from those mistakes by knowing about them. That's a revelation, okay? That's a revelation, folks. I'm revealing to you, if you learn these lessons, if you learn and you become a little wiser, then you don't have to suffer the dark wood, right? Now, does that mean, we're all going to have aspects of life. Don't get me wrong, folks. There are going to be scenarios. We're not perfect. We're going to go through our own dark woods at times unintentionally. Unintentionally is completely different, right, unintentionally because you thought you were on a particular road and you were on the wrong road. Who hasn't done that? Driving, going camping or something of that nature, right? You get on the wrong road. Oh, I think I took the wrong road. I've done that before. And not fun, but you realize you're on the wrong road and you try to rectify it, right? You don't go, oh, I'm on the wrong road. Let me just go do this. Or, that's completely different to make a mistake and to reverse course and to make a turn, right? And that's what you hope. You hope that the village that I used in my previous example, that they get it, that they wake up before they all stumble into the dark wood and the monsters get them, right? So this is kind of what you want, but you don't want intentional sprinting toward the dark wood because, oh, we're supposed to go toward the dark wood. No, that was that was a sign. Don't go into the dark wood. Should say dummy after that, right? Because all humans, we can be dumb. I've been dumb. I have been dumb. I've been hoodwinked, but you can't always blame things on people trying to fool you. People will always try to fool you, manipulate you. Some of it from nefarious, some of it selfishness, whatever. And you may just want to believe the hype, right? You want to believe that what you're experiencing is real when it may not be, right? So you have to be aware of the illusion. Okay, you go to work in an organization that says that they're tight. And I'm not saying any organization is perfect, but you go in an organization that really touts how well they are and how great they are and how tight they are and everything else. And you get in there, and after about 90 days, you're like, not so great, right? So they're trying to outmarket their weaknesses instead of working on their weaknesses, right? Again, a revelation, right? A revelation. Beware. Somebody is saying, oh, we're so great. Well, then I'm going to hold you to a very high level of scrutiny. If you are that great, be prepared. And you better lock it down, because if I come walking through there and you're not tic-tac, tight, then I'm going to know. And not only that, that means your customers know, and so on. Now, you could take that very example and apply it to the rest of culture. You can apply it to your neighborhood. You can apply it to your church. You can apply it to your political system, all of it, right? If you got it locked down, you better bring it locked down. Does your group exist to help only your group, or does your group exist for the betterment of all? This is the test, folks. This is the test. Do you think that the high obstacles, people, places, things, that the high obstacles are there, right? Just because they're there to help you elevate, right, your character, to learn from these things. And now we're given these tests, lesser tests, if you want to call them that, as individuals, but we're also given these tests as smaller groups, and then larger groups and larger groups. Can we play nice with one another? Can we play nice with one another? People have come through the ages to say, wake up, folks, wake up, right? But still, the dark wood attracts those who want to what? Manipulate nefariously and for whatever other reasons. Selfishness, right? Greed, whatever. Insert, silly thing here. They want to lure people into that dark wood for their own benefit. They're not looking out for the village, right? They're not. They're not looking out for the village at all. Now, does that mean that they're bad? No. I don't think. It makes you wonder, what is the difference between being evil and being completely stupid? You get your pick. If the outcome is moronic, then your choice was evil or stupid. Okay, that's it, right? That's it. Especially if you're choosing to go in the dark wood. If you're not choosing to go in the dark wood, if you're saying, I don't know, should we go in the dark wood? And you're conferring with your team, should we go that way? Do you think it looks kind of like the dark wood? And I think we heard that we probably shouldn't do the dark wood. No, we shouldn't do the dark wood. Oh, okay. Now you're not stupid, right? Or evil, right? Because why? You're coachable. You can learn. You're not going to just run off the cliff and then you're not going to be one of those who just follows, the one running over that cliff, adjacent to the dark wood, just because somebody else did, right? Who hasn't heard that? So today, just talking a little bit about, are you reading the signs correctly? right? Are you reading the signs? Are you projecting onto the signs and, and to what you believe history is to unfold? Are you projecting your own map? The map that is self-serving, right? That divides, that isn't for the betterment of all. That's your litmus test, folks. If it is not for the betterment of all, don't do it. Period. Dot. If it is not for the betterment of all, don't do it. Now, it could be for your betterment, but there always can be a bitter pill, right? There can be the medicine, right? Hey, we need to do this because our behavior. So keep in mind, if going down a certain road leads you away from those things that weren't good in your life, right? That aren't good for people, right? That aren't for your betterment, that isn't evil, or stupid. That can be for your betterment, but it may be uncomfortable, right? So you have to be careful. You have to use some, little bit of discernment here, right? Is going this way, yeah, it might suck for a minute, but guess what? It's going to get better, right? And here's why. And this is, there's a plan. If there's a plan, then you tell, hey, this is what we're doing, team. Well, this is the plan. And then you follow the plan. If you don't have a plan, but you're just riding your ego and your pride, just doing things, ad hoc and just kind of, wow, whatever, right? Then you're going to, even by accident, you're going to end up in the dark wood, right? Evil or stupid, right? We're back to that. So be aware, folks. Nobody wants to be evil or stupid. Well, I should say most people don't want to be evil or stupid. Some people haven't figured it out yet, right? Some people have to get right up to that dark wood and go, wow, that's not good. And you hope that that's going to be the case. But it's not going to be the case if we're not supportive, loving humans, right? If we're not protecting love by doing what? Rather than judge, because they may be stupid or evil, but rather than judge it, because we don't know, right? We have to give everyone the benefit of the doubt. And in a loving manner, say, hey, you know what? Dark woods, after a certain hour, probably shouldn't be in a dark wood, right? Hasn't ended well for others. Probably won't end well for us either, right? You don't do that by saying, you're this and you're that and you're this. Now, obviously, I'm saying the video to create contrast, right? So we reflect, right? Wouldn't run around calling people stupid or evil, right? That's not for my determination. I can only go off the data points. I can only go off what you revealed to me. Is what you're doing for the betterment of all, or is it selfish and manipulative and nefarious and dramatic, right? For dramatic effect and to create drama and because you're bored in your life, right? You don't have purpose, right? What you revealed to me in that regard, what? Isn't to say that you need to keep doing that like any other revelation, right? That you need to be that way. No, you are giving yourself your own signs and you're transmitting to others. This person now represents the dark wood. Okay? Don't go, don't hang with that person, right? Because this person is toxic to people around them and they do this and they do that. I'm not saying I run around saying that, but I'm saying be aware of it, right? Because once you're aware of it and you know that there's a dark wood, but there are people who represent that dark wood, and they be roaming around all your communities, in your villages, all around the world, in all of our groups. They're literally shadows of the dark wood, right? And they haven't figured out, they don't really even know why or what they're doing, okay? They're just kind of running ad hoc, right? Some of them might know what they're doing, but we don't always know what they're doing. So we have to be discerning about these things. But does that mean you're going to let all these shadowy, we'll say stupid or evil people lead you into the dark wood? Come on, right? Again, we got to wake up, folks. And then what? You don't douse that shadow with more shadow. You don't become the darkness. You become more what? A loving human being. And say, look, you don't really want to go down this path. This isn't going to end well, right? Because the universal law, whether we're talking about energy, matter and energy, for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction, right? You can call it karma. You can call it reaping what you sow, all of it, right? So whatever analogy or label you want to put on it, if that shadowy way of being that wants to lead people toward the dark wood, they'll get absorbed into it and gobbled up by it, right? But if you follow them into it, now you're just hurting yourself. You may not be evil, but you might be going down the stupid road, right? so let's not do that. Anyway, I hope you're having a fantastic day. Otherwise, folks, stay on the lighted path, do the good thing, be loving human, right? Respect everybody's sovereignty to love and to live thriving lives, right? Anything else isn't for the betterment of all, and anything that's not for the betterment of all tells its own story. It is its own revealing. All right, folks, have a fantastic day. Remember, hit that good green domino 3 to 5 times a day or more to uplift, motivate, inspire, and just encourage one another. When you do this, not only are you helping to transform culture, but you're transforming your own life. But don't forget, you can't transform anything on the outside if you're not willing to transform on the inside. That's super important. All right, folks, hit like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, we'll talk to you later.